And then my name's Jacob Maslin. I'm the ag educator here at Ontario County. And I'll kick it off to Jenny to start. She can introduce herself. And I should probably also introduce Steve and Judy Wright, also ag educators with CCE Seneca and CCE Albany, the capital region. Steve. So with that, I'll let Jenny take it off and introduce herself, and then Joan will follow. Thank you.
Awesome. So, welcome everyone to, I think this is called Becoming the New Boss, but my name is Jenny, and if I can get my slides going, there we go. My name is Jenny Marks, and I'm the owner of Trademarks Flower Farm and Trademark Flower Farming. They sound very similar, but different businesses. I've been farming my whole entire life. I grew up milking cows, throwing hay every summer, selling tomato plants and pumpkins, and I've been running my cut flower farm for the past decade. I have grown my flower farm to a multiple six-figure flower farm, growing on less than an acre without doing weddings. And I'm located in Clifton Springs, New York, which is kind of like between the Finger Lakes region and Rochester, New York. And I also help hundreds of other small scale flower farmers build profitable and sustainable businesses through my work with Trademark Flower Farming, where I teach an intensive business program called Six Figure Flower Farming. I also have a top rated podcast called Six Figure Flower Farming that has over 315 five-star reviews. And I'm really passionate about helping other farmers with business skills, marketing, sales, and operations management. So today we're going to be talking about farm management, employee management, employee retention, and some lessons I've learned about having team members, as I like to call them, and been managing people for the past probably 6 or 7 years or so. And I know that this can be a kind of a hard topic because we started farming because we love to farm, not because we like to manage people. But we need to see people and people management in a new light if we want to be able to scale our businesses and have successful and sustainable businesses that we don't get burnt out from. Because we all know that farming, pretty much you just associate farming with burnout, but it doesn't have to be that way. And the way we do that is by leaning on people, team members, and employees. With people, you can have huge opportunities with your business if you take the right approach. And so today, I'm hopefully going to give you guys some practical, easy to implement advice for small teams. So, first off, I just wanted to touch on actually hiring. So, Jacob asked me to talk about maybe your first hires or signs that it might be time to start hiring in your farm business. And I want you to feel confident with your first hires because hiring people is definitely super scary, especially with all the legal things and insurances you have to get in order to do that appropriately. However, it's so worth it because it can really help grow your business. Signs that it's time to start hiring might be that you are the bottleneck or the constraint in your business, meaning you are doing so much all the time, you don't have the capacity to take on more work or to get more clients or, get more of whatever you're selling and being able to sell it. So that's like stopping you from being able to grow your business. Another sign is that your work quality is slipping. If there's just simply not enough hours in the day and just the quality of your product is not as good as you want it to be. If you find yourself stuck working in the business all the time instead of on the business. So if you're only just doing the day-to-day stuff, but you're not having any time or space to think about like big picture strategy with like marketing and sales or expansion or operations, that's a really important as a business owner to be able to do that to move the needle forward. And if you just can't fill demand, like I know some of us have more demand than we can fill, others we're trying to create demand for our products. So no matter where you are. But if you find that you're not able to fill all the demand, that's a sign that it's time to start hiring. And I would say, even from the very beginning, just hiring any help at all is going to be huge in allowing you to take steps forward with your business. My first hires were just 5, 10 hours a week of extra help around, whether that was admin work or with like social media and marketing or just help around the farm. So your first hire doesn't have to be like a full-time salaried leadership role. It can literally just be someone that can help you just get through the stuff day to day. So most common fields or most common first hires for small scale flower farm or whatever other kind of small scale businesses include farm help or field help. So, doing the harvesting, the transplanting, seeding, weeding, all that kind of stuff. Then help with harvesting or processing your products. So on my farm, I have a lot of help with harvesting, processing the flowers, making bouquets, and selling them. So actually delivering them to clients and going to our farmers market, stuff like that. And then one that I think is hugely underrated is marketing and admin help. Specifically, if you are a farm that sells direct to consumer, where you are doing a ton of marketing yourself, if you can have somebody help you with the office work, the back end of your website, any administrative stuff, and usually these are things that farmers don't love doing. And so you should delegate it to somebody who loves doing it and would be happy to help you. That is extremely underrated, in my opinion. So, that being said, hiring doesn't instantly reduce your workload. You may be able to trade some hours of field time, but you're sort of trading that physical labor for mental labor. And now you're managing people. So I think of myself in my business now is I don't really do a lot of the day-to-day farm work anymore, but I am like the orchestrator of it. I feel like I orchestrate all the moving pieces of the farm. And I actually really like doing it, which I never thought that I would. I thought I'd always just want to be like harvesting and bouquet making and stuff. But I've actually gotten a lot of, I don't know, a pleasure out of learning how to be a better leader and taking on that leadership role with confidence. So, here are some things that I want to tell you about your first hires. These are things that I wish I knew when I first started hiring people for my business. That whenever you hire somebody, hire help, you need to get help that generates revenue for the business. You should never think about hiring somebody that is just like extra hands for weeding. Of course, we might need that, but part of this is creating help that are revenue multipliers. Every single helper or role on your team should be designed to make the business money and generate revenue. Like, who here would like more help if it didn't cost them anything? Right? Everyone. Because a lot of people look at employees as expenses, but they're not. They're an investment into making more money for your business. Every time you hire somebody, think of them as an asset to your farm. Every single one of my employees makes my business money either directly or indirectly. My field crew leader, who is pictured here holding those beautiful Hanoi ranunculus, she generates over $140,000 in revenue a year for my business. Just her. I don't do anything. She executes and is responsible for major pieces of our CSA, our farmers market, our dahlia tuber sale. So I do not harvest, process flowers for, deliver, or attend our farmers market or flower CSA. She does, which leaves me to do other things that make the business money, like working on getting more customers or marketing and sales or whatever other high level work that I want to do, creating efficiency, better systems and operations throughout the farm so we can be more profitable. And so if you are thinking about hiring on your farm, think about how that person you're hiring can generate revenue for the business by directly creating value so you can go and do other things that also make the business money. Because, of course, we got into farming because we love it and we're passionate about it, but we're also businesses that exist to create financial stability for our families. And this is how we do that by creating help that generates revenue for the business. So, this kind of starts at the beginning before you ever even hire somebody onto your team. It really starts with the idea and the inception of hiring somebody. So, in the beginning, you're going to start with a job description. It sounds very boring, but when you write your job description, it is so important that you clearly articulate exactly what this person will do, what outcomes they will be responsible for, how, I mean, you don't have to directly say like how they're going to make money, but in your head, you should be thinking about that when you write it down in the job description. And that description should be honest and upfront about the work. Obviously, you never want to like mislead people, but you also need to market this position just like you would your products or your services. Because in the job market today, You have to stand out from the other people, the other thousands of other people that are trying to hire people, especially in sort of this, I hate to call farming like low skilled labor, but the truth is when you're hiring people like admin or part-time field workers or farm workers, they could go down the street and get a job as a dishwasher or at Burger King making $20 an hour right now. And so you're competing with that. So you need to really market your position and make it so it would be a job someone out there would actually love to do. Talk about the perks, talk about how beautiful your farm is, how you get to work outside all day, how it's an amazing company culture, or whatever it is. And then when you're doing your interviews, you want to screen for attitude first, willingness to learn, and alignment with your company values more than anything else. And obviously, this depends on the role. I'm assuming most people listening to this aren't hiring like leadership roles yet. It's kind of your first few hires. And so I have never really hired anyone for my business that had farming experience. A lot of them didn't even have gardening experience, but they had a positive attitude. They aligned with our company values and they had a willingness and excitement to learn. And if they are coachable and teachable and they want to learn, they can become some of your best employees. My best employees were art teachers and a chemist. So it's like anybody could be a great worker, but it really all starts with that job description. Okay. So today I'm hopefully going to convince you to step away from like the doer in your business, doing everything, being everything, to being a leader in your business. And in order to do this, your responsibilities become developing positive company culture, like really becoming a place to work that people want to work at and where people feel good going to work and where everybody likes each other. That's a positive company culture that all starts with you as the leader. Because whatever you do and whatever you show up as at work, it's going to leak down to everyone else below you. So if you show up to meetings and you complain about your customers or the weather or whatever, guess what all of your employees are going to do? They're going to complain about your customers and the weather, and you are a mirror, and it's your responsibility to help them change their behavior. And through that, it means giving clear feedback in a kind way. So very clear direction and being kind with giving any kind of feedback. And a lot of people say to me, like, oh, well, I'm just not like a people person. I don't want to work with anyone. And I want to say that, like, I don't honestly not really either. Like, I really like to work by myself. I don't thrive in like a group setting naturally, but leadership is a learned skill that you can learn how to become a better leader. It's not just like a natural thing that happens. So here are some quick tips for you when you do hire and you have people on your team. Don't assume that people just know. You are going to have to repeat yourself over and over and over and over and over. And you're going to feel like you're being annoying and repetitive. But sometimes for things to click, people have to hear them multiple times. And you have to remember that a lot of times we're training people on our systems and we're maybe training them on how to farm. Maybe a lot of them haven't even farmed before. And so this is all brand new to them, and we have to be understanding of that and just not assume that people just know. And this means having systems into place, but that's like a whole other thing. I think I do have a slide on that next, so I'll save that for a second. You want to make sure that you are training and onboarding properly, not just like first day on the farm. Hey, here's our greenhouse. Here's how you seed. Go seed 10 trays. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Like that's not how you properly train and onboard people. I will say that we have like a whole system for onboarding and training people. I think I do talk about that in a minute, so I'll come back to that as well. Something that I personally have to work on all the time and I'm still working on getting better at is having hard conversations. You don't want to avoid hard conversations. You don't want to avoid feedback, even if it feels really painful to have like conflict. It can be a positive conflict. It doesn't have to be like, you suck at this, you need to do a better job. Like that's not constructive, but it does need to be kind feedback that helps both you, the person that you're giving that feedback to, and helps the company all together. So being careful not to just kind of like let things slip, because if you see somebody not doing something quite right and you just think, oh, it's not that big of a deal, I'm going to let it go, and you do that over and over and over again, it's going to snowball into your product not being what you want it to be. And so just making quick, direct, and fast feedback can help avoid that situation. And these customers, these people, not customers, these people that you hire on your team, generally most people want to do a good job. If you did well during that interview screening, you hired somebody who has that willingness to learn, that positive attitude. Most people really want to do a good job. They just need clear direction from you as a leader. And then finally, changing expectations without communicating them. If you decide all of a sudden that you need to do something differently in your business, or your expectations of that person or that process is different, make sure you communicate it and have communication be built into your culture. We do this through weekly meetings, which I always threw up when I heard the word meetings before I was a business owner. I hated meetings. I thought they were so awful and stupid and a waste of time. But honestly, it is if you do them right, it opens up this opportunity for open communication, open feedback, and allows you to develop positive relationships with your employees. And having that communication cadence and just always talking about the goals, where you're headed, what you want to do can be super helpful. Also, setting them up for success is really important. It's your job as the leader to set up your employees for success, which means having some core systems in place in terms of your hiring, management, and operations of the farm. This means whoever is on your team should clearly understand what their roles and responsibilities are. Very clearly, they know exactly when they come in every day what they should be doing, what they should be executing, what they're responsible for, and what they need to report on to you. This also means onboarding. So I mentioned before, we have a clear onboarding process. We basically look at it as a roughly 30, 60, and 90-day onboarding process, where generally in the first 30 days, they're watching you. They're just shadowing you, just getting an idea of the job, what they should be doing, just literally watching you. Then in the next phase, after the 30 days, between 30 and 60, you are having them do it, but you're right there watching them. And as questions come up, you're there to answer. You can make that feedback, those little corrections as they go. And by the end of those 30 days, chances are they should be able to independently execute on tasks and outcomes, generally without you being there all the time. And of course, you should always be available if they have questions or want to check on you with something. But that's basically our onboarding strategy in a nutshell. Very simple: 30, 60, 90. First, you watch them, then they watch you, then you watch them, then they can do it independently. And part of people doing work independently means you have to have written processes in place for them. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy, just simple checklists or what we call standard operating procedures, which all it is a written set of instructions. And when you have that, you also need to have defined standards. Like, what does done look like? What does clean look like? For example, I told one of my employees to clean our barn one time, and she swept the floor and wiped down the tables, and that was it. And in her mind, she was like, yes, I'm doing a great job because I'm cleaning the barn. But I didn't fully communicate what clean looked like by my standards, because things needed to be put away back in their homes, stuff needed to be organized, we needed to wipe down the whiteboards, all this stuff. So what I did was I created just a written process with a little check mark, have you cleaned the whiteboards, have you swept the floor and wiped down the tables, have you put every tool back in their home, X, Y, and Z. And then take a picture of the barn in the state you want it to look like when they're done, and say, this task is done when it looks like this. So these things are not hard. It's just mostly about communication and being very, very clear about the expectations around the job. And so many people get this wrong as business owners because you don't feel like you have the time to do it. You don't feel like you have the capacity to create these systems or train people on it, but this is what creates freedom for you. So because of our standard operating procedures, it removes, I am not the bottleneck in my business anymore. Before I had standard operating procedures or these written instructions for people, I could never get anything done because every time somebody had a question about something, if they weren't sure if they were doing it right, if they didn't know what the next step was, they would come and interrupt me. And I was like pulling my hair out because I was like, I have all these people working for me, but I still can't get anything done. And so now that we have this in place, that rarely happens anymore because they can check this book for answers before they come to me. Now, obviously, I'm still available if things come up, but this is essential if you want to create any kind of freedom for yourself and your business. It sounds boring, it sounds like corporate, but I'm telling you, this is what your employees want, and this is what's going to free you up to do whatever the hell you want as a business owner. When I finally created this, my employees were like, thank God, this is the best thing ever. They felt so empowered. And I was like, really? And they were like, yes, we don't have to come to you. All the answers are right here. Like, we can do our job without, like we can do it without you. And that makes us feel good. And I was like, freaking awesome. Which I was super surprised by. And every year we improve it, we add systems to it. It's great. And another reason why this is so important is because 9 out of 10 cases, the reason your farm is not growing or scaling is usually because of you. It's usually because you're the bottleneck. You are the constraint. And you have to multiply yourself as a business owner by hiring people who are also revenue generators for the business and who are also going to be able to follow these procedures and systems. Because I know this is not common, but you as the farm business owner should be able to step away from some point at your business and things shouldn't fall apart. The harvesting, the processing, the selling should keep happening easily without you. Now, I will say this does not happen overnight. In my position, this was years in the making of getting people on the team, training them, developing these systems. Like, it's not going to happen overnight, but this is the goal you want to work towards. So, systems don't have to be complicated. They don't have to be perfect. They can just be simple checklists or written instructions. So, before I go into that, this is a picture of our whiteboard. This is where we just track all of our harvest yields, and I don't do any of it. My employees do. And it's just, you can make super simple things like just put your harvest numbers on the whiteboard. At the end of the week, they all go into a spreadsheet that one of your employees does. They do that data entry for you, and it's great. So next, when it comes to managing performance, I kind of already covered this a little bit, but if you have people who are not performing that well, or they're not doing things the way you want to, a lot of times it just comes back to clear expectations and boundaries and clear communication. Obviously people have things that happen in their life, personal things that can affect them at work, but try to be understanding about that and try to differentiate between a skill gap and aptitude. So, like, maybe someone just literally doesn't have the skill to do what you're asking them to do yet, and you just have to train them on that some more. And then always, correcting mistakes without crushing morale, being very, very kind about it. Then, when it comes to employee retention, this is really hard with farming. I'm not going to lie. Labor management, getting good employees, keeping good employees is probably one of the most challenging things when it comes to owning a farming business. But because of the nature of it, like my business is basically a seasonal business, it's really hard to pay someone a salary when you only have income like 9 months of the year. But this is so possible. I have had employees come back for, I think Rebecca has been with us for like this will be her 6th season with us now. And you don't need to pay them $1 million a year. You don't need to promise them the world, but they want clarity. Clarity, clarity, clarity. That's not a typo that it's on there 3 times. People want to know, what is their purpose in the business? Are they contributing to something bigger than themselves? Are they growing every year? Are they learning? Are they important? Do you value them? Do you appreciate them? Do they enjoy the work? Do you make it enjoyable for them? Now, of course, you're going to always have a bad hire here and there, somebody who just isn't a good fit, or somebody's not right for the work. But for the most part, this is what it comes down to. So, employee retention. And in order to do that, you need to help them reach their potential. You need to build up their skills by training them. You need to give them ownership over areas of your business. At first, obviously, very, very small things like data entry or just harvesting one thing the right way. but eventually you want to give them ownership over certain outcomes, not just like checking off tasks. Because of course there are people who want to be those like people who just, you come in, you give them some tasks and they check them off. But to, in order to have somebody stay and retain them, they have to feel like what they do is important and they have to feel like they have some ownership over it. And of course, you build trust and responsibility, and that sometimes takes time. Okay. I realize I want to leave some plenty of time at the end for questions and stuff. So I might kind of like go a little bit faster over these next few slides, but I wanted to touch on company culture because this is another huge thing that comes down to retention. I recently had interviewed a person to work here at my farm who came from another flower farm, and they paid her, I don't remember exactly what they paid her, but let's just say it was like $20 an hour, but with the expectation that she worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week from April through Christmas, no time off, no breaks, no sick time. And they hammered on her every time something wasn't perfect. And there was all these bad toxic things happening in the workplace. And she was like, she had been doing it for like 15 years. And she was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And that's because they didn't have a good company culture. And so this is incredibly important to develop as a leader. And this sounds sort of like a lofty idea or whatever, but you want to have clear core values that your business stands behind, repeat them often, make them a part of everyday life on the farm, have a mission statement that everyone in your company knows and understands and lives by, make systems a part of daily life, and your language that you use really matters as well. We don't say employees here at my farm, they are team members. We are equal, we are team members. No matter if I'm the leader and they are like, coming in as minimum wage, we're all a team. They're not my employees. And that's a big differentiator when it comes to company culture. I also think that you should share your goals with your employees. Tell them how many CSAs you want to sell. Tell them, you may not want to share all your revenue goals and everything, but tell them where you're headed because they will help you get there. But they can only do that if they understand where you are going. There's a great book about company culture. It's called Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh, and it's spelled weird. I think it's Hseih, but if you're interested in company culture, great book about that. So again, retention comes down to predictability, communication, feeling valued, not just paid, a job that they love, being appreciated, and working towards a shared goal together. So I'm going to wrap up now with just some like hard truths that I have learned from managing people from the past 6 or 7 years or so is that number one, not everyone works out, and that's okay. This is a part of life. This is part of owning a business. If you have a couple of people where it doesn't work out, don't get discouraged. You can always find somebody that really does work out and they could change your entire business for you. Firing or letting people go is a part of leadership. I struggle with this so much. It is so hard. But if there's somebody that your business is outgrowing or they're not right for your business, it's okay to let them go and it's okay to do it kindly. And you just have to remember that this is for the best for both of you because chances are that person is not going to end up thriving in your business anyways. And they can go on to find something that's in better alignment with their skills and their talents and what they're looking for. Another hard truth is that good employees don't fix broken systems. A lot of people are looking for that one person that can change it all for their business, but you have to start with great systems on your business. If you don't have good systems in place, good documentation, good leadership, people are never going to fix that. You have to build those systems so when you get somebody good, they can amplify that even more. So really looking at your systems and processes on the farm. Are they efficient? Are you doing it in a way that is simple and makes sense, that is streamlined and effective in a way that anybody can do it? Because if it's not, you need to rethink the way that system is happening. And your business can only grow as fast as your leadership. You will be able to grow your business to a certain point, and you'll probably be able to do the majority of it by yourself. But at some point, the only way to scale is by welcoming in new team members and hiring and onboarding and training and leading and becoming a leader. It is the only way to keep scaling your business. This is a truth that I, for a long time, resisted. I was like, I don't need more people. I can do this. But it's simply not true. So just some few takeaways, key takeaways for you guys is that you don't need to be a perfect employer or a perfect leader. You just need to be clear and kind. And a lot of this comes back to clarity, like being very, very clear on your business, your mission, your values, what you stand for, where you're going, and what exactly you need to do to get there and who can help you do it. There's another great book out there called Who Not How. It's another good one if you guys want another recommendation or resource. My second key takeaway that I want you guys to take from this is that systems create freedom in your business. If you're a busy business owner who is burnt out, you are overwhelmed all the time, running around like a chicken with its head cut off, more tasks than you'll ever be able to execute on. Systems is what it all comes down to. And then delegating those systems to other people, that's what gives you freedom as a business owner. And finally, that leadership is a learned skill, not a personality trait. And lastly, if you guys want to learn more about this kind of stuff, I do teach a course all about it. It's a business program where I teach operations and marketing, sales, financials, all that kind of stuff. I have a bunch of free guides all about business and by mini courses and stuff on my website. If you want to check it out, it's all free. We also have a blog with some other resources as well. And then, of course, I have a podcast. We have, I think, like 80 episodes right now, and just a lot of like business information on there for you. So with that, here's my contact information. If you have any questions ever, feel free to reach out. Email is definitely the best way to reach me. So it's info@trademarkfarmer.com. But again, my name is Jenny, and if you guys have any questions, happy to take them. But thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That was a wealth of knowledge. I took a lot of notes. I guess we'll probably, there's no questions in the chat. So I guess if you want to stop sharing your screen, and then Joan, do you want to share your screen next, and then introduce yourself, and then go right ahead in your presentation? Then we'll probably take questions at the end. I've got a few questions I think Jenny could answer, and probably Joan too. So, yeah. Have you got it, Joan? I can see your screen.
Yep. Hold on. Ah, there it is. Okay, I think I'm up and running at this point.
Yep, you got it. Thank you, Joan.
Okay, so becoming the new boss. First of all, let me say a little bit about myself. My name is Joan Petzin, and I am a retired farm business management specialist and agriculture program leader. Worked 38 years with Cornell Cooperative Extension. A lot of work with new farmers, a lot of work with people coming into management roles on farms and learning those skills to be a manager. And so I think I want to start by saying there's a lot of important employer responsibilities for another time. Things like the Fair Labor Standards Act, the federal law regarding employment, all the New York State labor laws relating to minimum wage, sick leave requirements, sexual harassment, workers' compensation, unemployment. specific laws regarding the hiring of youthful workers in agriculture. All of those are things I am not going to talk about today, but when you become an employer, you need to either address those things or you need to find someone who can do that for you. Because that nuts and bolts side is an important piece of making sure you've done things the right way. So today I'm going to spend some time talking about welcoming the new employee. Jenny did a great job with talking about that, setting expectations, some of the formal aspects of working with employees, working with your team members, and then informal aspects, being human, respect, care, and understanding. And then what's either off limits or handled with care, and that would be friends and family. That is where I want to go. So welcome a new employee. I think the first day someone comes to work for you is a really important day. And Jenny, I'm going to skip and not talk at all. It's interesting that Jenny talked a lot about, selecting and getting that job description together and things. But one of the real keys is once you've got that person hired, let's make that first day a real success. I like to start with a brief tour. I like to have people have a walkabout so they know generally where things are and they know who else is working in the business. That's a really important piece of helping people understand and see the farm in a holistic kind of way. And then from there, allowing some time for completion of the important paperwork that is needed to establish that employer-employee relationship. Again, those paperwork things, an I-9, a work agreement, withholding forms, the emergency contact info. That's another really important one not to forget to get is emergency contact. Working in farming can be dangerous, and you want to know who to reach out to should you need to reach out to somebody on an employee's behalf. Next is talk about their first few days at work. What will it look like? What are your goals for them for day 1, for day 2, for day 3, and so on, so that they have an idea what they're getting into and what's to be expected. That probably up to there is going to take the better part of the first half of their day. The other thing I think is really important is on their first day, spending some time with them working on a very specific task that you want them to go to work on. It gives them time to get something done. They feel like they're contributing right off the bat. Employees didn't come to work to wonder what they're supposed to do or to wonder how. They really want to get to work and they want to figure out how they're contributing and doing something that they feel like they're contributing. At the end of that first day, they want to feel like they did a little something to help that business move forward. The other piece is toward the end of their shift, make sure you as the owner, the manager are checking in and seeing how their day went. Making sure they understand what they were supposed to do, understand what's going to be next for tomorrow, and having them check in. That check-in is so important. It allows them to give you feedback, you to give them feedback on that first day, and hopefully sets the stage for a longer term working relationship. When you're setting expectation, your workplace rules are important. You're not probably going to have an employee handbook right off the bat, but those workplace rules are really what's the basis of an employee handbook, and finding ways to communicate what your expectations are, what are the workplace rules that everybody lives by is an important piece of this. What's the best way to communicate and when to use it? What are your expectations for communication? When do you want to receive an email? When is a phone call needed? When is a text message okay? Are you using instant messaging apps within the business and how to use them? One of the big stumbling blocks is if somebody's not going to be able to come to work, if they're sick, if there's something wrong, they're not going to be able to be there. How do you want them? How do you as the employer want them to reach out to you and let you know how they want, what's happening in their world that they're not going to be able to be there? I find that, is something that we need to make very clear right from the very beginning with folks. The next step is setting performance goals. Again, that training piece, Jenny did a really wonderful job talking about gradually training people and letting them come on, but take some time during their first week working with you and make it a discussion between you and your new person, that they help them to understand what are the expectations. It's a back and forth. What do they feel comfortable doing? What do they need more training on? Where are they going? And this is going to be ongoing throughout employment. But at the end of the first week, I encourage you to have 3 or 4 written goals. They may even be just goals for what you hope they will learn by the end of the first week, or the next week, or the next month. But you've agreed on them. Both of you have an understanding of where things are going and what your expectations are. Setting those performance goals is going to happen over and over and over again. And again, that's back to that clear communication, understanding where you want each other to be and understand each other, and you having them have a clear understanding of what you want from them. Aspects of a formal relationship, or formal aspects of the relationship. Your job description or a work agreement. Those are pieces that we want to review it together. We want to go over that and explain it. Don't just assume they're going to read it and understand everything. Work through it. You don't have to do it all at once, but working down through that job description, making sure everybody understands where we're at, what that expectation means, what that responsibility of the job is. That's how you will help them to be able to achieve the expectations that you have, is by having them clearly understand what's expected. I talked about goals before. There's short-term goals and there's longer range goals. And I think that's a really important piece, is helping them see a little bit about short-term, but also understanding where we want to be in the long range. Jenny spoke about the mission statement and communicating that with employees, and that's part of that long range. The other piece is listening. As you as an employer need to be able to hear and clarify how they align with your expectations. And that is a really key piece. So listening to what they're telling you about what they understand and what they don't understand, giving them opportunities, asking questions. Oftentimes we fail to ask questions, or we ask questions that have a yes or no answer. When you ask questions, you want to ask questions that allow them to expand. Ask why questions, ask them to explain what you've just shown them, how they would go about doing it. That way you've got feedback that lets you know either they understand or you need to make a correction. And I think that's a really important piece, is when you're, as an employer, sometimes it's easy to ask a question that just has a yes or no answer. One of the key mistakes that we all make, I think, as we work with people is, do you understand? Everybody understands. They nod yes, they understand, when maybe they don't. They know, everyone knows the employer, their other team member wants them to understand. So of course they're going to say, yes, I understand. Very rarely it takes a brave person to say, no, I don't really understand what you're talking about. So ask them to explain to you versus asking if they understand. Then you know if the explanation matches up with your understanding of what you want done, then yes, they understand. If it doesn't, then you can make that correction without it being threatening. Writing down goals. It really helps with clear communication, is that you write down those goals. And when those goals are written down and shared, each of you has something to refer to. Yes, it formalizes the relationship, it formalizes that communication, but it again helps to make clarity. And that is so important as you work through and develop that working relationship with one another. You want to feel like your employees can come and talk to you. You want them to feel they can come and talk to you at any time. But at the same time, you want them to have clear expectations of what can be done. And this one, I think, is often overlooked. Informal aspects of our relationship with an employee or a team member. respect. Always speak to employees in a respectful manner. If you are upset, if you are frustrated with someone, you might need to take a few minutes and just go check down. Get yourself into a position where you can have that conversation in a respectful manner. None of us do a good job communicating if we're angry. And so always look for ways to get yourself in the frame of mind to have a respectful conversation. Another piece is to avoid any type of degrading language. And that may be relating to ethnicity, it may be relating to sex, it may be relating to their people's family, just anything that feels like it might be degrading, and it may not feel like it to you, but you need to think about what might feel degrading to someone else. Don't say it. Leave it alone. Find a way to say it differently so that you have been respectful with that. I also want to talk a little bit about I statements and you statements. It's very easy to say, hey, you screwed that up. That puts blame, makes people feel uncomfortable. It makes them feel like they really made a mess of things and you're not going to appreciate them. It's better to say, I noticed that there was a mistake made here. I'd like to show you how I want it done differently. You talk about it from how it's going to affect you. And by doing it the right way, you're going to help make sure that this product looks the way we want it to, that we have a quality product going out the door, that we're satisfying our customers. So I think having an I statement, speaking about things from how it affects you, not how you feel about them, is important. Care. Ask questions about family, about hobbies, about shared interests. Here in Western New York, the Buffalo Bills is usually fair game. Most people like to talk about football and the Bills. And so find some common things that you can talk about. That shows them that you value them and that you really want to come to know them as a person as well as an employee. And I think that's one of the things that's really a balancing act, is finding where that personal relationship begins and ends, and where the employer relationship starts and finishes. But having that care and wanting to know, if somebody's got someone in their family that's not doing well, something like, now and then ask, gee, how's your wife doing? Is she feeling better? Or things like that. I think that shows that you genuinely care about them as a person, because you need to care about them as a person as well as being your employee, for them to feel welcomed and a part of an important, and like they're important to you as well as a person, as well as they're not just somebody that works for you, that you recognize they're a real person with a life and interests and a family and things that they really care about. Understanding. Ask questions and seek to know if they understand what's expected. Again, asking them those open-ended questions that help them to explain, that help them to share with you what their current situation is. Remember to listen actively. Try to understand their personal situation as it relates to work. Get feedback. Give them feedback. Did I understand you to say that your wife has just been diagnosed with an illness, with a serious illness? And that gives them the chance to expand upon that. I think that's a really important piece. Actively listening to, when you ask them, can you tell me exactly how we're going to go about doing this process? That is a good way then for them to lead you through the fact that they understand. If not, you get to give that firm but kind corrective discussion. And so I think those are some things that we want to really think about as we work through and talk with people, is don't forget that informal aspect of the relationship, that is really the foundation upon which you're building. Off limits are handled with care. family and friends. When you're starting out and you're looking for that person that's just going to do a few tasks for you, that they're going to take some of the pressure off on one of the jobs that's a bottleneck in your business, oftentimes we look to family or friends because we know who they are, they're familiar to us. Maybe it's one of your friends' children that's going to come to work for you as a youthful employee. That's great. But have that conversation about the work relationship being different than your personal relationship with them. And that we really need to understand that in the workplace, this is what my expectations are. I think that's more important when you're dealing with family or friends than it is when you're dealing with that stranger that's coming in and going to work for you, because you don't have that personal relationship. And so that you can kind of keep the personal side separate from the business side. And when we're at work, and we need to act like we're at work. Be sure to address the formalities, especially, again, going over that job description, making sure you have all of the correct paperwork in place. Getting those things done is especially important when you're working with family and friends. And then it's easy sometimes when it's somebody in the family to have higher expectations, or to show some preference. And you have to be very, very cautious not to do that if it's someone you know personally. We need to make sure we're treating all employees, all team members in a similar manner, and not giving some extra grace to somebody because we know their situation, because they're friends or family. And I think that's one of the real tricks if we are working with friends and family, is making sure we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and making sure that formalities are taken care of and that we're treating everyone in the workplace in a similar manner. So becoming the new boss, I wanted to leave a lot of time for questions. So again, there are the legal details and responsibilities. You can do those, but if you're not familiar or you're not good at those details, you might want to outsource that. You might want to employ a payroll company to handle those details for you. Or you might want to bring in an administrative assistant that's all they're going to do is handle some of those paperwork and administrative kinds of details to make sure you're in compliance. Be sure that each new employee's first day is a positive experience. Again, taking that time to do the introductions, to show them the big picture, and then helping them understand where they fit in. Be clear about your expectations as your business grows. Writing down policies and procedures and goals really helps a lot. And remember, formal isn't all bad. It really helps to keep communication uniform and clear. And that's one of the critical pieces. I rarely hear somebody say, as an employee, I'm leaving because I didn't get paid enough, or I'm leaving because I didn't have enough vacation. It's I'm leaving because I didn't feel I was valued, or I'm leaving because I didn't really understand what I was supposed to be doing and I don't feel like I was valued in the business. And that's an important piece. Some of the formalities help to keep that going. And then be mindful of your communication skills. Let communication skills and style cement the employer-employee relationship and help to foster loyalty. And I think that's really important. Jenny communicated that so well, in that employees, team members, they're a part of your business. They help you to grow. Those skills of being an employer, of communicating with employees and team members, are skills you can learn. And becoming a leader is a big job, and it's a job change for you. If you've been the doer in your business and you're working to become now the leader in your business, it's taking a new skill set. So you're going to need to take time, do some reading, attend some classes, do what you need to do to get better at those skills of being a leader in your business and being an employer. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it back for question and answer. I really think there's lots of opportunities, and by now we've probably generated some opportunity for people to ask questions either directly or in the chat.
Thanks, Joan. I liked your presentation. I like that you mentioned adding the personal touch and asking about people's hobbies and families. I have a couple questions that Judy's sending me. For Joan, in your time with Extension, have you had any experience where communication between women and men was different or difficult? And how do you manage that as a female employer? Jenny, you could chime in too. Maybe.
Okay. I personally have not. I will say you have to realize where I'm coming from and where I grew up from, in that as I was a child growing up on a dairy and through my years of early employment, women were not very numerous in agriculture, but I didn't have, I would, because of the way my dad raised me to be independent and to work through things, I didn't feel that. But I will say that I did have employees, and it goes both ways. I'll share an example of a very uncomfortable situation for a young man that came to work for me in Extension. The administrative assistant staff would have lunch together. Many times professional staff would also have lunch together in the lunchroom. And our culture was most people brought their own lunches. And I hired this young man, and these gals working as administrative assistants just were almost vulgar in some of the things that they talked about. And he was very, very uncomfortable. Came and talked to me about it. And he says, but I have a plan. And so he went ahead with his plan. And I have to say, I said to him, I said, well, if this plan doesn't work, it might backfire on you. But he said, I'm going to make up a story about the fact that I was a male stripper when I was in college. And I'm going to share that in the lunchroom. Well, that did solve the problem. I'm not sure that that was the best way to go about it, but I do know that we've come a long way over the last few decades in how we handle uncomfortable conversations between men and women. And I think that that's something that we need to really work with. We have to work with each other to make sure we're confident in what we're talking about, and also setting some clear expectations as to what are off limits as far as conversations go. Jenny?
I guess the only thing I feel compelled to say about this is that I think that men and women naturally communicate differently, and sometimes it can be difficult to sort of get on the same page. Whereas, like, a lot of times, and of course, these are all generalities, and it's hard for me to make generalities because everyone is so unique and different. But a lot of times, men sometimes don't communicate with enough context, and sometimes men need to just be more conscious about giving more context, whereas women may communicate with more emotion rather than being like fact or data driven. And so when having conversations or conflicts at work, to be more conscious of bringing data and context to situations for both parties. I've seen that work a little bit better, but this is a very like touchy topic that I don't feel like I want to get too deep into.
Yeah, that's fair. Thanks for your responses. One question in the chat. I'm curious about the financial tipping point for dipping toes into that first hire. For instance, hiring help with harvest, wash, and pack would theoretically generate revenue and allow for more customer growth to meet demand. Still starting out with hiring, it seems risky to add more CSA members if a new team member is unreliable or slow. So they seem hesitant to hire and unsure, how to add more growth to their business, like you mentioned, Jenny, when they're not sure if that person's going to be probably as fast as the owner or reliable. Not sure if you have any words to the wise from the wise.
First thing I want to say is that if you have an unreliable person, then you hired the wrong person. They need to go. You need to get somebody who is reliable. I've only had people who were unreliable, like once or twice, and they were out of here really, really fast. You can't have that in your business. It's going to bring down your culture. It's going to bring down your business. So no unreliable people. Get rid of them. Get somebody who is. People are going to be slower than you. You're never going to find someone faster than you. So just expect any person you hire to be 30% less efficient and less fast than you in the beginning, because skill comes before speed. So you just got to really hammer training, really make sure you're training them how to do things properly and in a way that helps them attain the skill, and then speed will come later. Like when I'm training my employees how to harvest, I tell them exactly how to use their hands, where to put bunches of flowers, exactly what steps to take. Like we go really deep into it so they understand that efficiency affects profitability at the farm, and that, we're not like cracking the whip all the time, but they need to have an understanding of the process. And now my Rebecca, who works for me for 6 years, she is faster at transplanting and harvesting than I am. And so I just say that you need to really focus on that onboarding and training piece of it and be really confident that it's possible. Lots of farms do it, and it comes with time.
I would add that the other thing is that's where those standard operating procedures come in. Because if they're not confident in how to do something, but you've got an outline, and I would say standard operating procedures, oftentimes it's off a series of pictures of the steps along the way is an easy way to make an SOP. And so, as you're communicating and you're thinking about showing them that first time, even working with them and taking some pictures along the way that they have something to refer to, so they don't have to come back and interrupt you to get the help they need to understand, or they don't get to all the way to the end of the job and you are not happy with how they've done it. Those are some pieces that can help along the way.
Thanks. We are just about out of time. I did want to ask Jenny one more question, because you mentioned mission statements, and like, how did you come up with the mission statement for your farm? And like, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I used to think that mission statements and like core values and stuff were like cheesy corporate things. The longer I'm in business, I realize it's critical to how you run your business. And so when we made our mission statement, we really looked at like, what is the purpose of this business? Who do we serve? Like, who are our customers? And what is our goal in this business existing? Like, what are we setting out to do with it? And then every decision you make on your farm or your team members make needs to align with that mission. And if it doesn't align with it, then it's probably not a good fit. So I just think that it's something that sounds like very like lofty and cheesy, but more and more it's become super important in us really developing that company culture and becoming aligned as a team, and helps us achieve our goals faster too.
Right. Yeah, I think it's important for a business to have a mission statement, and as an individual also to have like a personal mission statement. So thanks.
Yeah.
With that, I'm probably going to wrap it up. We've come to an hour. So thank you, Joan and Jenny, for presenting today. Thank you for all that attended. All those that registered will get an email with this recording. And so with that, thank you. Thank you all.